been planning this for a long time. So let's start with a short introduction. Just introduce yourself, please, and what do you do?
Sure, absolutely. Hey, Rita, I'm so happy to be here. Super excited to be chatting with you. My name is Lena Sasardich. I am a two times corporate dropout. I am a LinkedIn baddie, as I like to call myself, and my community. And so I basically spent most of my time in corporate in my career for about 7 years as a product manager in tech. I built a lot of software. I learned how to program. I also then burnt out quite a bit in corporate, and I was working in like a bit of a startup like team within a big organization, and eventually it started becoming a little bit more corporate as we grew. And that's when I transitioned over to a role at a different company running an innovation team as a product manager. And that was my first taste of entrepreneurship because we were basically validating product ideas in the market, prototyping new things. I was interviewing customers. That was the first time that I learned that the first step to building a company is not to incorporate it, but it's to actually test the demand in the market. And unfortunately, 6 months after that, my job was cut, not from the company, but they decided to not continue with our innovation team because we had new leadership. And that was when I decided to throw myself into the world of entrepreneurship. So I quit corporate and I went on a bit of an entrepreneurial journey for like 19 months. I tested different product ideas. All of them failed. They were all SaaS product ideas. But the one thing that worked out for me was I was very active on LinkedIn throughout my whole journey. I was building in public, as we like to call it, just sharing my journey, sharing what I'm working on, the failures, how I'm pivoting, and all that. And then ended up actually building a personal brand on LinkedIn. And I got really good engagement because I was just kind of doing what most people were not really doing, sharing the journey during going through it. And so, yeah, I LinkedIn kind of became my thing. Eventually, I started a TikTok account about over a year ago, and that's when I really started to grow a following of people who really looked at me as an expert for LinkedIn. And ever since then, I've like a year ago, I quit corporate for the second time because after I burnt out in my entrepreneurial journey, I went back to corporate again for air for a bit. And then I decided to quit again. And that was all kind of because I had this LinkedIn personal brand. I knew that I could drum up demand for services. I was already a bit of an authority. And so I decided to take the plunge again. And so ever since then, I've been working with predominantly service-based business owners to help them not just land clients on LinkedIn, but also show up on social media as themselves unapologetically and as their authentic selves so that they can actually create a connection with the right clients, not just any clients, and kind of also discover themselves as a business owner. So that's kind of like my spiel.
Oh, that's that's a huge journey for you, like ending up here, creating content on LinkedIn. Well, that's amazing, but you also have a lot of experience in different areas, so I guess that actually helps you to create a better content on LinkedIn because you already have a knowledge.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I think a lot of I've been creating content online for almost actually, I guess almost wait, 2021, 22, 23, almost 4 years, which is pretty crazy. Yeah.
And what stands out for me here is that you are mixing between LinkedIn and TikTok. Because for me, TikTok is kind of not really a serious platform. All the teenagers are using it right now. That's not for us, let's say it like that. So you're using it to help you to promote yourself on LinkedIn, or is it just a separate platform for you? Like, what's your balance here?
Yeah, so TikTok definitely started out as like a dancing app for, like teenagers or kind of, people like that. But it's actually completely transformed over the past few years. And a really interesting thing is so I use TikTok predominantly as my top of funnel platform. So it's my visibility platform. It's where people discover me just because there's so much reach. It's really easy to still get a lot of organic reach, especially if you have kind of a bit of a different niche like mine of talking about LinkedIn in more of a fun way. And so I use that to bring more people into my audience. And then oftentimes they'll follow me on LinkedIn from there, or they'll sign up for my newsletter, or they'll show up to like my weekly lives or something. And, the pattern that I've seen, and this is actually really hilarious because last year when I was about to start my business, I'd been on TikTok, and that was kind of where I had started to feel the early stages of people wanting to hire me for LinkedIn. Because on LinkedIn, I was talking more about product management because I was back in corporate. And the interesting thing is the first few clients that I got from TikTok for LinkedIn were actually Gen Xers. They were not teenagers. They weren't in their 20s, even their 30s. Like maybe like one of them was in their late 30s, but a lot of them were like 40s, 50s. And even a few weeks ago, I actually got an inbound lead from a company who I think they have like $1 million in revenue annually. They've been around for 20 years. They have no social media presence, kind of that classic, like they've decided, hey, we need to get active, which is great. But they found me on TikTok. And if you looked at the profile of the person on LinkedIn, you traditionally would not expect them to be on TikTok, but there's been a massive, massive shift. And so I'm finding it's a huge, it's not really like I don't think it's a non-serious platform in terms of the ability to get clients from it, but I think it is more of a non-serious platform in terms of it really rewards authenticity and not being too polished. And I think this is actually a thought I was having yesterday. I think TikTok is the epitome of marketing right now. I feel like the way that people create content, the way they tell stories, the way they sell on TikTok, I think is the future. And so right now, what I'm actually kind of thinking about is bringing more, and that's kind of what I've been doing as well, is trying to bring more of these newer marketing strategies over to LinkedIn. And so, yeah, that's
That's
kind of my view and my experience so far with TikTok.
that's an great insight. I didn't know that. It sounds like it's just that doesn't have like a filter or something because it's Chinese owned platform, so they don't really care. So you can say whatever you want. So people are really being creative there. I think
Totally.
that's
And TikTok really came about kind of during the pandemic was when the big surge happened. And I think and this is kind of a really big topic because the pandemic completely changed LinkedIn as well. And this is going to sound really lame, but I'm actually getting chills through my body because I'm so passionate about this shift because it's essentially the new era of authenticity. And so what happened on TikTok is people really went on TikTok, and I think they were during the pandemic. It's like a lot of people were just thinking, like, what do I really want to do in my life? Who am I? Am I being myself? What do I truly want to do? Like, I want to connect with other people who, like, I want to be understood, right? I think there was this big loneliness issue. And so TikTok came in as kind of this new platform where people could just completely be themselves. Like, people could show up in their pajamas. I remember there was a girl who, like, she has a huge audience now. She was like a new mom of a baby, and she was just doing these really funny videos, and she was just in her pajamas with a shirt with holes in it, and she, like, people loved her, right? And so I think it really filled a gap that was missing in social media of this, like, these polished Instagram influencers, and we're feeling that trickle onto LinkedIn. And that's why I'm so passionate about the authentic side of LinkedIn, because I think people are so hungry for it. They don't want the fake stuff anymore. It's just it doesn't work anymore, basically.
yeah, that's true. And TikTok is totally different from everything else we know because videos are short. It's not like your typical YouTube video, and on Instagram, you really need to work so hard to grab someone's attention. When on TikTok is different, as you said, you can still get a lot of organic reach there, something that is not happening almost on any platform that we know today. So yeah, it has something to it. Like, let's see how it will develop in the future. It's very interesting.
It's interesting because Threads just came out recently. So Instagram came out with their new social media platform, Threads,
Mhm.
which I'm personally not on. I'm not really the one to always jump early on social media. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not as much of an innovator as I'd like to be. But Threads apparently is actually very, very kind of similar to TikTok in its authenticness. And I think there's going to be a pattern of new social media platforms that roll out, because when they start from scratch, they get to kind of define the culture, right? And I think
Hmm.
TikTok started when people wanted to be more real, and now Threads started when like people have just been gobbling up this authenticity. So I think it's kind of a positive thing. I think for social media is overall the pattern hopefully is kind of, less fakeness and more realness.
We'll see, because we can see what's happening today. Like, look at Twitter, what's going on there. So I'm still not sure, because threads are just starting and people are not do not know what to do with it. So it's just in its beginning
Early
stage.
stages.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so
It's still
we'll see.
forming. Yeah.
And speaking on about the content, like, what actual tools do you use today to help you out create great videos on TikTok and amazing content on LinkedIn?
So my answer might be a little bit underwhelming, because I feel like a lot of people, they have, so many different tools and AI and all these things. And I need to kind of jump more on the AI train. But honestly, I don't actually use that many kind of tools, if you will, like technology wise, just because for my content, for example, the only time I'll ever use ChatGPT is if I want to kind of like refine a post, or maybe I want to brainstorm a better hook, or I want to come up with a different phrase or something. But I don't really ever have AI write content for me, just because I found that whenever I do that, I just lose my voice and then I just end up sounding like everyone else. And I'm a writer at heart, and I truly actually love content creation. I don't see it as this extra thing that I have to do. Like, if like you my ideal business in my life is me just creating content all day long and just going live. And so I truly love creating content. I feel like it is a self-expression for me. And so the only kind of tool that I really use in the loose sense of the word is I rely heavily on listening to my community, surveying my customers, serving my audience, engaging in conversations, implementing what I call feedback loops for me to get insights regularly from my audience to improve my content creation. That's really kind of like the biggest thing that has helped me, is really getting into the head of my audience, engaging with them and serving them with what they need. So that's kind of the one thing I wanted to highlight. But when it comes to video,
Hmm.
again, this is where I'm a really big believer. So I used to do the fancy videos. I used to, like record the YouTube video and edit it and add the effects and, do the short video with the cute little design around it. But what I've kind of discovered is it really just comes down to the message and everything on top of that, especially when you're still iterating on your content and trying to understand what it is that people need from you. It's almost like I wasted a lot of time doing this extra design, the cool captions and the cool effects. But at the end of the day, I think just getting the message out and iterating on that is the most effective thing. So with TikTok, the thing that I love is I just record inside the app. I literally just put the phone there, I hit record, and I record in segments. So I'll start my hook, I'll record, I'll say the hook, and then I'll stop the recording, and then I'll keep kind of going in segments. And then I create the whole video. I throw a title on the top. I throw the captions. I cut out a little bit of gaps, and then I'm done. So for me to film a TikTok video, I can film a TikTok video in like 3 minutes if I want to. Usually it takes me like 10, 15. So I'm a very like, I take a bit more of I'm a very MVP type of content creator, I guess is what I'll say.
That's a really fresh approach. Like, everyone is using whatever AI tool is possibly out there today. Even LinkedIn has one now for like inside the post creation. So everybody is just jumping on it. There are a lot of documents about how to use ChatGPT to, save a lot of time to create scripts and everything else. But it's really true. It's true, because I read your posts and they're funny, and you're talking about yourself and you're describing situation from your personal view, and then you're getting to the point. Like, it's an interesting approach, I would say, and it's really personal. So I truly believe in what I read when I read your posts, and that's what makes them great.
I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. I definitely want to. There are certain parts of my content creation that I can make more effective, and I have nothing against AI. Like I actually think I'm a bit of a laggard in the market for not really jumping on AI as much, and I think it's really important. I think it's very beneficial, but it's really dependent on how you use it. I think a lot of people they focus too much on trying to save time, but they don't realize that in the early stages of content creation, like you can't automate because that's where you're learning, you know? It's like, you know, how sometimes I personally don't have kids, so I can't really speak on this topic, but I will say, like, you know, kids, you know, it's kind of like giving them an iPad when they're really young. It's like maybe it's better if they just play in the dirt and kind of figure out things how, you know, how to do math, like, you know, in a times table, like not just using a calculator right away. So that's kind of how I look at it. Like, I think early stages of content creation, like, you really need to find your voice, you need to iterate, and it's a volume based approach. And once you figure that out, then you can have AI as an assistant. But I think a lot of people are, and you know, maybe they're getting great engagement by using ChatGPT, but I don't think they're going to be, I don't think their voice will really burn into their ideal, like their audience's mind as much as kind of authentic manually written content, if you will.
Yeah, I think you're right here. But how do you get your ideas? Like, if you're not using any AI tools, like, where do you get your creative ideas then?
So I get them directly from my audience. So I am constantly, you know, speaking to my audience. Like I'll give you a really good example. I've been full disclosure, I'm going through a bit of a transition with my positioning. And to be completely honest, it's because LinkedIn has gotten so crowded, it's gotten so noisy, and, you know, there are so many other people selling LinkedIn services. And so I actually have to go do my homework now and figure out, like, what is it that really kind of, you know, differentiates me. And so what I did yesterday was, there's a lovely woman who I'm connected to on LinkedIn. She followed me through a recommendation, and she had reached out to me about working together about 2 months ago. We didn't end up working together. She ended up going off on her own, which I was like, great. I'm happy that you can figure it out on your own. But I asked her yesterday, I was like, hey, you know, I have a quick question for you. What is it about me or my profile or my content that made you want to reach out to work with me? And she responded to me and she said, you know, I loved your baddie approach. I love that you're authentic. Like, I love that you're not like a bro marketer, and it's like simple. And so these are kind of the insights that I use to position myself and really understand how my audience views me and what it is that I need to serve them up with, right? And so through these kinds of DM conversations, another example is, you know, whenever anyone follows me on LinkedIn, I always say, hey, thanks for the follow, let's connect. And then that starts a conversation, and they usually start telling me. And so there was a woman who had connected with me recently, and she told me, you know, I love how you're helping us be our unapologetic self in an intimidating place. And that's basically that's a content idea right there, right? And I could literally take like another 40 content ideas out of that, right? Like, you know, how
Mhm.
to build confidence when you're intimidated by LinkedIn, you know, a story about how I went from eight, like, I get a lot of insights from my actual audience. And this is actually something I think a lot of people are, you know, leaving you know, good ideas on the table by going straight to AI, because, you know, it's harder and it's more you know, time consuming to talk to your audience. And yeah, it's hard sometimes because you get a lot of different ideas and you have to sift through it and translate it into content ideas. But I think this is the work that 90% of content creators are not really doing anymore with AI. And that's where I think you can actually make a bigger impact, because you're actually going directly to the source, not just typing a prompt into ChatGPT like every other LinkedIn coach is, right? And I
Yeah,
actually
that's
read a
true.
really interesting post on LinkedIn recently. I can't remember who. Oh, I think it was actually Brendan Hufford. He's one of my favorite creators. He talks about SEO for startups. And he was talking about how most people put into ChatGPT, hey, what are my ideal clients' top struggles? Or what are the things that I need to talk about in this blog post? And he said, actually, the better way is go to the prompt, Ask ChatGPT, what are the top things that, I should talk about? And then don't talk about those things. Find other things, find things that are unexpected. And he actually mentioned Amanda Natividad, who's an incredible marketer. She works at Spark Toro now, which is founded by Rand Fishkin. He's like the king of SEO, basically. So she's the queen of marketing. And he actually mentioned her. He's like, I read a blog post from Amanda about how to, give a great public speech. And he was like, this was actually useful because it was information I couldn't find on ChatGPT. And so I think, while yes, I'm not as automated as some people and I'm not as efficient maybe with my content creation, but I believe I'm actually creating content that does not exist out there. And just kind of I'm just on a roll here. I'm going to give you another example. I rank on page one of Google often for the few blog posts that I have about LinkedIn. I rarely do keyword research. I don't care about SEO. I recently moved my website. Like I probably lost a bunch of authority. My website domain authority is like under 30. But I rank number one on Google because I'm actually plugging a need, right? And ChatGPT will never give me that information because it's very complicated in people's minds, right? So I think that's how I get my ideas, and I think that's why my content resonates, is because I'm going straight to the source and really analyzing what my what my audience is asking for in the comments and responding directly to that.
Yeah, that's the difference between a person behind a post creation and ChatGPT, a unique approach. That's right. So, what would your advice be to someone who's just starting with content creation on LinkedIn based on what you told me today? Like, would you recommend them to reach out to audience first and talk to them about what is it missing in their area industry, or like how to approach content creation on LinkedIn with so many different tools today and so many, well, mess in information that we have?
Totally. It can be so overwhelming. The simplest strategy, and this is what I recommend to kind of really anyone and my clients and everyone, people who are really kind of starting with content creation, especially on LinkedIn. So, LinkedIn is a very special platform because it has a very special feature that does not exist on any other social media platform. And that is the power of comments on LinkedIn. So, comments are gold on LinkedIn. So a lot of the time, what I'll recommend people to do is you can start creating content. Sure. Like I'm always a fan of just go out there and just start doing things, just start collecting data and seeing what you like creating content about, what your audience engages with. But it's going to be a little bit, especially when you don't have as big of an audience, you haven't been creating a lot of content, you might not be able to really get those conversations going as easily just with your content. So what I would highly recommend is commenting on other people's posts, but not just for kind of, random engagement, but actually to test your ways of thinking and understand what are the things when you talk about that people get interested in. So a really simple strategy could be, create a list of, a few big creators who have big engagement so you can get more discovered. And then a few people who are, just very closely in your niche that you genuinely like engaging with because you maybe think the same, you like their content. And then just really go hard on commenting. And what you'll find is you'll get engagement on your comments. And LinkedIn really rewards comments. It's like a really important metric for everyone. So a lot of creators will respond to your comments because it's good for them, for their engagement, right? So it's a really easy way to kind of slot yourself into the right conversations and start basically validating your different ways of thinking, ways you talk about things, stories, your expertise. And through those conversations, you will generate insights and you will also now generate conversations in the DMs. And when you're really active in the content and you're engaging with a lot of people, it's a lot easier for you to reach out and ask them questions. Let's say, for example, me and you, we've been engaging a little bit on LinkedIn, on, Growth Mentor Slack. And so if I were to ask you, hey, Rita, like I did, I was like, hey, does my headline resonate with you? Like
Mhm.
what comes to mind for you? You're going to respond to me, right? Happily. And that's the iterative process that I think is necessary to understand what is it about you that people are interested in when you talk about, and that will then inform your content strategy.
Got it. I'm making notes while we speak. So, yeah, that's actually great because not a lot of people talk about it, and people are concentrating on different content types and time when you post and days when you post. Like people recommending to post on Sunday and Saturdays. So, like technical things instead of the actual work because doing comments like posting comments is work because you need to read whatever people are posting and you need to respond like with thoughts and not just hey I like what you did there and that's it like copy paste comments. So that's an actual work and that's why LinkedIn rewards it.
Yeah, I think people sometimes, I don't blame them, but I think people want not just a shortcut, but they want a clear roadmap, right? They want to know, they want the recipe. They're like, okay, like, if I put, if I do 2 eggs and this much flour and this much sugar, I will bake a cake. But unfortunately, that's not content creation, that's not business, and that's not life, right? And I think the unfortunate thing is you have to kind of put in the right reps. So posting at the right time, posting on weekends, making sure that you're, engaging before you post. These are all great things and they certainly help, but I think they're more amplifiers because at the end of the day, if you're not sharing a message that is unique and that your audience wants to hear from you, you can use all the hacks to get engagement and maybe you will get engagement, but you're not actually going to convert. And actually, I'll say, even if you do convert, again, you're not really going to be a memorable brand. So you can do that. There's a bunch of people making money just creating kind of generic content and nothing against it. But if you want to be the person who truly believes in what they talk about and truly actually magnetize people who are, as I say, really hooked on your vibe and believe in who you are, not just how you can help them, I think that's a lot more powerful for the long run.
Yeah, that's true. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking your time and sharing all of this really amazing information with us. And it was great.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Rita. Thank you so much. These questions are great. I hope that it's helpful for anyone
I'm
who's
sure it
starting
is.
out on
I'm
LinkedIn
sure.
or going further.
Okay. Thank you.